My entitled sibling abandoned her trio of kids, so I stepped in to care for them. Decades afterward, she presented me with funds as gratitude, yet she insisted on it. Greetings, I'm 48, and my junior sister Diana is 46. Diana and I rarely saw eye to eye during our youth. She was consistently haughty and rude toward me, leading us to part ways once we completed secondary school. I chose to pursue further studies, whereas she opted to cohabitate with her partner at the time. It was fortunate that her companion was affluent, since our folks couldn't have covered the expenses if she'd resided independently. Nonetheless, she made it evident to our parents that she disregarded their views on her choices and would proceed as she pleased. Thus, our parents refrained from intervening, allowing her to roam without restrictions. Diana had a son at 20 and a son at 21 while residing with her partner. Our parents rejoiced for her but also fretted, as she bore heavy responsibilities without employment. She relied entirely on her boyfriend's finances for her way of living. Diana never wed her companion, which I viewed as an error, since she lacked rights to alimony upon their separation. They parted when Diana discovered his infidelity. Luckily, he provided child support, but her situation led him to reject paternity and forfeit his parental duties. The girls were 3 at that point, while my nephew was merely 2. Following that, my sister was entirely self-reliant and required all the aid possible to sustain herself. Despite our strained bond, I resolved to assist her, largely due to urging from our parents. Back then, I had a decent income, but it fell short of supporting all 4 of them. Still, my parents and I contributed some funds monthly, helping them manage. In the initial months, she struggled since she lacked qualifications and work history. She had to begin from scratch and advance, compelling her to dedicate substantial hours to her job for rapid progress. Yet that proved challenging, as she also needed to consider her kids, whom she couldn't abandon at home. Hiring a sitter was an option, but it was unaffordable, so she depended on me or acquaintances. Our parents were working too and provided monetary help, preventing them from staying home with the youngsters. The same applied to me. She lacked friends willing to watch the kids during her shifts, as they had their own commitments and careers. Hence, she stuck to low-paying roles offering adaptable schedules and quick returns home. This way, she avoided extended sitter fees, which would have been prohibitive. This phase endured for several years, and I suspect Diana started resenting her own offspring, viewing them as barriers to her achievements. She remarked that they were the sole factors hindering her advancement. From time to time, I stopped by her place, not for her sake, but for the kids to ensure their welfare. I held no positive ties with her, but I wasn't heartless enough to allow blameless children to endure due to their mom's poor choices. Thus, my parents and I frequently checked on the kids. They often grumbled about Diana's harsh treatment. She scolded them for trivial errors and struck them, simply because they were youngsters seeking enjoyment. It was a dreadful life for everyone, and I wished I could remove them from that environment and house them with me. But I couldn't, as she was their lawful guardian, and I possessed no legal power over them. Moreover, she received support from her ex for the kids and strived to cope. I felt awful for her, but far worse for the children. Diana started dating other men, worsening the circumstances. Each failed romance led her to fault her kids. She believed her suitors ended things upon learning she was a mother of 3. I think it stemmed from her omitting mention of her children early on, revealing it only after a month or 2, which felt deceptive. I attempted to clarify this to her multiple times, but she remained convinced rejection came from having kids. She reiterated this constantly, reminding them how their dad had deserted her and warned she'd abandon them too if they misbehaved. The kids feared her, and their early years were marred by their mother's self-centeredness. This persisted for years. I contemplated grabbing the kids and fleeing with them on several occasions, but it wasn't feasible. I couldn't seek guardianship or report her, as while her conduct was improper, it didn't warrant removing the children. So the setup continued, and the kids were simply thankful for my presence in their lives. My parents were too elderly to serve as companions, but I was always available when they required me. They couldn't confide in their mom about issues, but they could always approach their aunt no matter what. Whenever school, studies, or Diana troubles arose, they turned to me, and I cherished their confidence. It's unsurprising that at 18, they chose to depart their mother's residence and relocate with me. Now adults, they could select their living arrangements, and they picked me. Diana was clearly upset and voiced many complaints. She claimed she'd squandered 18 years nurturing those kids, only for them to abandon her ultimately. She was thus very hostile and told me that if I'd nurtured her kids so extensively, I should have intervened much sooner, rather than stepping in when the hard part was essentially finished. I wanted to retort that she hadn't truly raised them. They essentially matured independently, as she was usually at work or with men who ditched her upon discovering her 3 children. She lacked clarity on priorities, and it was evident why events unfolded as they did. The kids selected the individual who genuinely supported them, not the one who'd perpetually tormented and abused them due to her inability to find a partner and her unhappy existence. It was clear she was oblivious to the harm she inflicted, as she suffered herself. However, I avoided pointing it out, knowing it must have been painful for her, prompting her approach. So I stayed silent, and that concluded it. Afterward, we ceased meaningful communication. Her kids opted to leave her and reside with me. Diana chose to sever ties with all of us, avoiding contact with anyone, including our parents. That seemed odd, as they'd done nothing to merit it. I think their failure to side with her when my nieces and nephew chose me annoyed her, leading her to cut them off too. 7 years have elapsed now, and they're all thriving. I'm unaware of Diana's recent activities, but I know her kids are succeeding. My nephew pursued medicine and is now a child doctor. One niece holds a literature degree and teaches, while her twin operates a beauty parlor. I assisted them all in securing business loans and supported them financially as much as possible. I'm immensely proud of them, given the distance they've traveled from their former home. They now live separately. They stayed with me for just 4 years, and even then it wasn't fully like cohabiting, as they were mostly at university and returned sporadically. I believe they avoided returning to Diana's place, where they felt unwelcome. It's been 2 years since they all left, and I'm delighted for them. I never anticipated repayment for my actions, as I truly felt it was the proper course. They were merely children, and regardless of the rift between my sister and me, I couldn't remain indifferent to them. I always had a soft spot for them, particularly since I never had kids or married myself. That wasn't my path, but for them, I aimed to act as a parental figure, given their dad's absence. And we all knew Diana's nature. They needed someone, and my parents were too aged for that role, so I stepped up. That was all. I never sought recompense. But I'm thankful they're the type of kids who believe I merit a token of appreciation for my efforts. Even though I don't think it warranted payback, I valued their kindness. About a week back, I marked my 48th birthday with friends and family, including my nieces and nephew. I had a wonderful time, and my nephew kindly handled the arrangements. Though I'd have preferred to cover costs, he persisted in paying, as he now earns sufficiently to reciprocate and demonstrate gratitude. Post-party, the 3 sat with me for a chat. They shared that, now financially stable, they wished to show thanks by jointly giving me a check. I attempted to convey it was unneeded, as I still work and sustain myself, but they pressed on. They stressed it wasn't repaying a debt. They could never reimburse what I'd provided, as it transcended money. It involved the support and faith I'd offered, which couldn't be fully reciprocated. This was their humble way to express thanks. I was profoundly touched by their genuine gesture and wanted to post about it online. I simply aimed to thank them for their actions toward me. My sister and I hadn't conversed in years, so I figured it wouldn't concern her. I was blocked across platforms and presumed she wouldn't view it, making it fine. Diana had never reached out or checked on her kids' welfare after they departed. True, they initiated the separation by moving to me, but that stemmed from her. The minimum she could have done was express interest in their lives and attempt to fulfill a maternal role, rectifying her errors. But frankly, she appeared unconcerned about the lack of communication, so I assumed she was content. Yet after that post, she responded a few days ago. I hadn't anticipated it since we'd been silent for 6 years. But I might have predicted that once she learned her kids were financially set, she'd snoop around like a hound to snag some funds from them. In her reply, she noted seeing my post and desiring to discuss her kids. She acknowledged past errors and not being a good mom, but felt compelled to retry. She asserted missing them greatly over the past 6 years. I'm uncertain of the veracity in that, as if she truly missed them, she could have contacted at least once. She requested I speak to her kids and aid in mending the rift, since they respond positively to me. The timing felt off, so I disregarded her message. But when I didn't reply, she phoned that evening and I got irritated. She demanded I assist in reconnecting with her kids, but I declined. I was fully aware it concerned their money, not genuine care for their well-being. If she truly repented, she'd have approached them directly rather than me. She couldn't set aside her pride and ego momentarily. She still anticipated her kids to initiate contact, despite her faults. It was astonishing how entitled she acted. She attempted to debate, claiming it wasn't about money and that it was offensive for me to suggest so. I assured her I wasn't suggesting anything to her. It was blatantly clear. I was appalled and repulsed by her behavior. She then charged me with taking everything from her, alleging I'd already taken her kids and now aimed for their riches. I informed her I didn't need the funds and initially resisted the check, but now I'd accept it all since she didn't merit it. Now she's lamenting on social media, sharing what I said and attempting to vilify me. Some relatives claim I overstepped, am avaricious, and owe her an apology, which is ridiculous. That's why I'm here questioning if I'm mistaken for telling my sister she doesn't deserve the money her kids wish to give me. As noted in some responses, I informed my nieces and nephew about the matter. They mentioned hearing about it from relatives, but lacking time to discuss with me. After phoning and conversing with them, they affirmed I did right. My nephew candidly shared his thoughts, stating he'd never viewed his mom as maternal. He always credited me since she was absent for him, and my nieces concurred. He was always the most forthright in the group, so it was expected this came from him. My nieces were too upset to talk, but he was quite furious and distressed. He said Diana only approached me because she never did what was required for them. This occurred despite receiving child aid from their dad, and even then she demeaned them and guilt-tripped them merely for existing, which wasn't their doing. They feel I acted correctly and assured me they won't contact their mom, regardless. They also suggest I defend myself and share my perspective online, after Diana opted to badmouth me on social media. They think that's the best method to communicate the point. So I'll proceed. I'm thrilled they chose to support me here, as my parents remain neutral and stated they won't meddle. Diana never spoke to them after her kids cut ties, which I find peculiar. My parents' detached stance on this issue seems odd to me, given no communication with Diana in 6 years. I was let down, but at least my nieces and nephew back me. Many inquired why I didn't seek custody and remove Diana's kids if I knew she was a poor mom mistreating them. In my post, I noted her actions were wrong but not abuse, mistreatment, or neglect. She was always harsh to the kids and lacked emotional connection with them, so I could have pursued custody, but success was improbable. Courts typically favor keeping families intact, and here they'd already lost their dad. Their father had abandoned them, leaving only their mom as biological parent. Naturally, the court would want the family united. I knew if I sued or took legal steps against Diana, she'd ensure I never saw them again. She'd relocate the kids far away. It was already unlikely I'd gain custody by removing them, so that would have endangered things. Thus, I chose caution, maintaining contact and being present for them always. I'm unsure if that was ideal long-term, but then it appeared the sole choice. Perhaps other approaches existed, but that's what I conceived, so I followed what seemed correct. It was tough for me, and I pondered for years whether to seek custody or rehome them away from her. But you can't predict outcomes. And I thought it better for the kids to remain with their mom while staying connected to me and my parents than risk upheaval. I hope that addresses most queries people had. Perhaps I appeared as the villain due to my actions, but I don't mind. I know the kids are fine, and I did all to ensure their happiness and security. I was always there for them. That's why I have no regrets. Second update. A week has gone by since Diana's message, and today I've gotten numerous calls from family and folks who have talked to her. They highlighted my errors and reprimanded me. It was becoming truly draining, and I was swamped with work, so I couldn't post sooner. But today, I've resolved it's sufficient. After a brief talk with my nephew and nieces, I've finally chosen to compose a piece detailing my viewpoint and somewhat hers. I believe no family member grasped how much these kids endured growing up. How many hardships they faced daily, just because Diana chose early pregnancy and abandoned everything for her boyfriend then. Even afterward, she kept blaming others for her deeds and pretended to exert maximum effort for her kids' best. But truly, she was never present for them. Since she informed everyone I'd stolen her kids, and now, with them prosperous, I felt people deserved the truth, not her distorted narrative where she's the victim, not the tormentor. They'd already judged me for reasons, knowing only her account and pitying her. But really, I deserved to present my account, as did her kids. So I drafted it all hours ago and released the piece. Thus far, she hasn't addressed me, and the only notes I've gotten are from relatives who previously judged me. They've suddenly shifted opinions and are attempting apologies for premature judgment. But honestly, that holds no value for me. I merely wanted the truth out. I don't care about their views of me, but it mattered to reveal the truth and how Diana handled her kids, explaining their no-contact stance. However, now that it's done, I'm prepared to move past it. Frankly, I want no further involvement with Diana, and I was perfectly content the past 6 years without her outreach. I think the same for her kids. I don't grasp why she had to create such turmoil. If she sought money, she could have requested it instead of pretending to reclaim motherhood. Update 3: It's been a day since I made this post. Diana might have arisen today and chosen to reach me. Rather than direct contact, she escalated drama and started commenting on the post. She attempted to portray me as fabricating, but it failed. As soon as she responded, her kids naturally commented back and countered her. They recalled specific childhood incidents where she was vicious to them. That lasted around an hour, and I didn't feel remorse. Nor did anyone else, as my nephew, nieces, and I all relished it immensely. They shamed her profoundly, and she couldn't retort anymore because every falsehood she spun to defame me was unveiled. I'm pleased I did this on the weekend. Otherwise, we mightn't have responded so promptly. In any case, it took about an hour, then she started erasing her comments to prevent exposure of her deceptions. However, it was too late, as many had already seen the comment section activity, and I believe others discussed her for her conduct. She proceeded to delete her comments, and all she'd said then blocked me. She blocked her kids, too. I suppose that was her expression method, and I'm glad, as she'd have lost any confrontation with us. We hold the advantage here, ethically or otherwise. I think deleting comments marks the end of our ties, but she opted to message me privately. She texted hoping I'd be satisfied now, since I'd depicted her as a beast, and everyone despises her. It was ironic coming from her, as that's precisely what she first attempted with me. She started it, and now that I reciprocated, she couldn't handle it. I don't comprehend why people provoke when they know they can't take retaliation. Just avoid drama if you shun accountability for consequences. Anyway, I ignored that message and will all do so lifelong as it's unworthy of our focus. She demonstrated it. Thanks for watching.